This is a very interesting fuel tank. It's a 14-gallon Fuel Caddy. The most common or most popular fuel tanks that people are using with my extended run fuel kits are the 6-gallon marine tanks. However, the 6-gallon marine tanks have one inherent flaw that a lot of people have run into. If you've gone to my fine-tuning and troubleshooting video, you're aware of what it is. The lift tubes have a tendency to suck air. On the molar and tempo, where the lift tube is attached, now this is out of a Scepter Neptune tank, the molar and tempo lift tube is much larger diameter, but where it's attached to the nylon fitting at the top of the tank, it's just slid on, so it'll suck air around it, which will cause it to run out of fuel. Most of the fuel tanks are about 11 inches tall, so that would make it right about here. From the roll table up to here would be the tank. This lift tube came out of a Scepter Neptune, as I said. And here's the problem that the customer was having with it. We'll say here was the top of the fuel tank, and the tank was all the way full of gasoline. So as he started up his generator and it started pulling gasoline out of the tank, and the level in the tank started dropping, as soon as it got to the top of the screen, it started sucking air instead of fuel. The lift tube literally did not go all the way to the bottom of the tank, and the effective length of the lift tube allowed him to use less than half of the fuel. So at any rate, that's the inherent flaw with the 6-gallon tanks. The 6-gallon tanks will weigh about 45 pounds full of fuel, where this is a 14-gallon tank. So if it were full of fuel, it would weigh about 120 pounds, which is fairly heavy, but there's no law that says that you have to fill it all the way full. So if you know that you're only going to need 6 gallons of fuel, then put 6 gallons in it. It's lighter weight. However, if you are going to be camping all weekend and you're going to need, 10, 11, 12, 13 gallons or whatever, go ahead and fill it all the way full. This has wheels on it, which makes it a whole lot easier to move around. You don't have to carry it, you just roll it. When you're transporting it, you lay it on its back so that the fuel cap and the fuel pickup area would be at the top, so it's not going to spill out. As I discussed earlier, the 6-gallon marine tanks have a problem with them leaking air around the pickup fitting. This one here, the fuel delivery port's in the bottom of the tank. So when the fuel gets down to this level, you won't pick up any fuel anymore, which is about 2 quarts, because you'll notice that the tank is tapered at the bottom. And right here is about the level of the fuel pickup. So you would use all but the last 2 quarts of fuel. And if you're beyond, say, 20 years old, you already know that fuel debris and water settle to the bottom. So you're going to skip that whenever you use the fuel. You'll get good gasoline here, and then if there's any water, it'll be in the bottom. And if there's debris, it usually settles in the bottom, so that won't interfere with it. To hook this to one of my fuel kits is straightforward and simple.